It's Friday, it's 12:30. Thank you for joining us. My name is Richard Duggins and I'll be our chair for today. Our presenter today is Neil Cockling. The Reverend Dr. Neil Cockling has worked in the Trust as a mental health chaplain for 22 years. His own research interests have included unusual spiritual practices and Eastern religions, a Methodist minister. Prior to coming to work full-time for the Trust as chaplaincy team leader, he convened the National Church's approach to new spiritual practices. He's recently been part of a panel advising the Church of England on its 10-year plan for spiritual growth. He also convenes the Trust Mindfulness Strategy and Development Group. Neil runs regular courses on spirituality in the recovery colleges, but he is also a keen advocate in chaplaincy being for staff as much as it is for service users. So now I hand over to Neil. Thank you.
Here's the first slide, Dave, which is the outline of the session. If you want to just have a look at that and see how the things we're going to cover, you'll be able to have a look at again afterwards at this. So what we mean by when we talk about spirituality, what's spirituality for, and what is unhelpful, as well as what we might find help with spirituality. So here's a diagram which I think might be helpful. If you think about a continuum between group conformity on one end and an individual approach to spirituality on the other, then when most people think about spirituality, they often think about organised religions. And of course, those are group activities. So that's towards the left of our diagram. On the extreme right are our own ideas and practices about spirituality. Whatever position we take on spirituality, each one of us has our own ideas. And in terms of those practices, some people think, actually, that's very private to me. I don't want to do my spirituality with other people. I want to have my own approach. I don't want to join in with groups or organised religion. It's for me personally. And so I've illustrated that by putting a brick wall, a blue line to the left of that, to show that people don't want to be involved in groups. Sometimes they want to do their own thing. Organised religions, I've placed a circle round, a closed circle, because often organised religions say you're either in them or you're out of them. And for instance, you can't be a member of the church and also be a practicing Muslim. There's an exclusivity there. So organised religions are one way of looking at group work in spirituality. In between the two are shared beliefs or cultures. Each one of us has grown up in society. We've grown up in our families. We've grown up with people around us. We've talked to people about spiritual practices. We may have read things. We might have been taken to church as kids. And those shared beliefs or cultures that we have in society help us to think about spirituality. Notice that the circle around that is dotted because it's more open. You may notice there's a gap at the extreme left, and that's because there is another group beyond organised religions, which here I'm calling religious sects, with a very thick circle around it. One of the definitions of a religious sect is a group which demands total commitment, and if you want to be part of them, you must remove yourself from the rest of society and have absolute conformity to the group. And so that's at the far extreme. You will notice on this diagram there is now a gap between our own ideas and practices and the other aspects of group conformity. Now this, I believe, is where most of it actually sit. It's what I call pick and mix spirituality. We take ideas from organised religion, from our shared beliefs, the things we've talked about with friends, with our own thinking, and we actually can adopt an approach which is personal to us. It's really important to set the context for that, because spirituality at its heart is an individual thing, and how we develop our spirituality and what we do could be done with groups or could be done with our own. But I think the most helpful part of approaching spirituality for our well-being is to say, what works for me? Ultimately, as you can see at the bottom of the screen now, one of the ways of looking at this continuum is whether we see truth as being absolute and there's only one truth, or whether we see it as being personal. And it's not entirely subjective. There is some objectivity about truth, and the truth is that the truth is somewhere in the middle between those two extremes. So, what's spirituality for? I think that spirituality is about finding answers to deep questions. First of all, though, to say that when we're talking about our heading in life and what life is for, when we're looking at spiritual questions, we're not looking at a map where someone has been before us necessarily and tells us what we will encounter on the way. We're looking at a compass which allows us to see roughly which direction we're heading in. We don't know what we'll encounter in life, and that's certainly been the case this year with COVID-19. And as we ask questions about the life that we're facing, some of these questions, excuse me, some of these questions are very personal. They're very simple questions, but they are, they're very simple questions, but they've got very personal answers. So what is life for? What are my values? How do I live them out? Are very simple questions with very deep answers, particularly that question, who am I? Why am I here? And so when we face these questions, they are not simple questions to answer, but spirituality helps us to do that. At the bottom, I put, can I be honest with myself about myself? When I'm on my own, how do I really face myself and what do I think about myself? That's a spiritual question. In some respects, spirituality is about doing. The things that are done are very personal, and if you look at this random selection, you might think some of them you'll run away from. God, I wouldn't do that. But other people find great value in doing these things. Many people spend a lot of time on Facebook and connecting with other people. Some people do creative stuff. Some people say, actually, I'm at my best when I'm with my family. So doing things to address our spiritual needs is really important. But equally, spirituality is also about being. Doing can be switched on and off. You can do it in one instance and not do it another time. And does that mean you're no longer being spiritual if you're not doing spirituality? Well, actually, spirituality is about our being. It's about our character. It's about who we are. So we do things to deal with our spirituality and to help our spirituality. But actually, the way we approach life is as much part of our spirituality. The whole idea of mindfulness is about not striving to do things, but simply to experience things and to be in life. So, for instance, consider the difference between the two statements at the bottom of the slide here. We've seen T-shirts where people say, be kind. I haven't seen any T-shirts saying, do kind things. But actually, we don't need to tell people to do kind things. If they are kind, they will do kind things naturally. Equally, you might think, do a good deed every day is a good maxim, but actually be loving. Think about your character, and then you will do the good deeds naturally without thinking, oh, I haven't done a good deed today. So spirituality is as much about being as about doing. Spirituality addresses our emotional needs. It helps us to find joy, even in the midst of difficulties. It's not the same as happiness. Happiness is having a happy life, having good things happening to you, enjoying great things. Well, joy can be found even in the midst of great miserable aspects of our life and misery. So when we go through life, all sorts of things change. Now, liminal experiences are what happens in life when we think about great changes to life, when we get married, when we have children, when we retire, when we change our jobs. These are threshold moments where we move from one aspect of life to the next. And when we reflect on those experiences, often people want ceremonies to mark those things, and spirituality helps us to do that. Some of the experiences we have are difficult liminal experiences where people die, where we get divorced, where we might even lose our jobs or lose our sense of what life is about, which is certainly where people are finding themselves in the current COVID-19 crisis. And spirituality and addressing our spiritual needs helps us to deal with that sorrow and accept our loss. Equally, spirituality helps us to look at the very vexed question of forgiveness. How do we forgive ourselves as much as other people for the things we've made mistakes over in the past? When we forgive others, do we decide to forgive and forget, or do we decide to remember with care and to learn from that experience, even though we have forgiven them? And that's a very deep spiritual question. Most of all, I think spiritual ways of approaching life allows us to find peace in the eye of storms that are around us. There's a huge evidence base on the health effects of meeting our spiritual needs, and finding that peace in the midst of crisis is something that I think spirituality can help us with. It can be found from within us. Mindful approaches allow us to focus on the present moment, to contemplate on deep matters, to think how do I answer the question about my values in life? Who am I going to be? That question, what for me is a great life? At the end of the day, we're all going to be retired, and we're no longer going to be defining what we do in life, but who we are. I used to play a game when I was a kid called Careers, and everybody had their own goals to win that game. You had to decide whether you wanted to aim for making the most money or being famous or finding love. And your own balance of that was your goal. And as soon as you hit that secret goal you set out to hit, you could say you've won the game. Once you revealed the goal at the beginning. So what for you would be a great life? What are you aiming for in life? But also, it isn't just about what's within us, it's what's beyond us. Spirituality helps us to have connectedness, maybe with a higher being, maybe with God, maybe with other people as we find help in shared experiences. To talk about spiritual matters with others is really helpful to us sometimes, and not to do it all on our own in that very extreme sense of being totally private about our spirituality. That connecting with otherness happens when we have a sense of the presence of God in our lives, or where the hairs on the back of our neck stand up because we've experienced something profound, or when we feel really pleased about how we've encountered friendship with somebody. And that's a very spiritual experience. I did want to say that I want to talk about where spirituality might be unhelpful. It is unhelpful if we're following practices which say this is the way to go. And if you're not part of us, you're not following the truth. It's unhelpful, particularly with religious sects which control you and tell you what to do. Also, religion's very good at helping people think about guilt and work with anxiety about the way we're behaving. And I think that's unhelpful too. So we should ask ourselves whether the spiritual framework we've adopted is the best we can adopt, and otherwise it might be unhelpful to us. Equally, I've encountered people over the years who've got involved in obsessive behaviours and rituals. That might even include, for instance, spending too much time on Facebook, or too much time doing something which they did find helpful to them, but they're being caught up by. So a question to ask with anything you do with spirituality is this blessing me? And it depends on your definition of blessing. Here's the Ready Breck advert from the 1980s. And here's a lad who's had his Ready Breck and therefore can cope with whatever weather he encounters during the day. Finding blessing is about being able to face life and to know you can face life because of what's within you. You might not have a Ready Breck glow, but there are other ways of finding blessing. We find that help in shared experiences which blesses us. We can recognise that we don't rely on ourselves alone. It's not all up to us. And when we do that, we are released from the anxiety of trying to get it all right. We might always begin to recognise that plans are thwarted in life sometimes, as we found in the current crisis. And can we find reasons to be thankful? The old song that people might have sung in Sunday school is count your blessings, count them every one. Think about the things that are good in life when things are not going to plan. Think about your sources of replenishment. What is it that makes you feel good, that helps your spirits be raised? Those are spiritual sources for you. I want to say that the best way to practice spirituality is to get on and do it. If something is truly important to you, you will find time to do it. In religious terms, we talk about worship, we talk about devotion, and we devote ourselves to the things we want to give worth to. What do you spend time doing? Is it leading to goodness in your life? Is it helping you? Do you need to think about varying your approach and find a new way of spirituality? Don't wait for everything to be all right in life before you start meeting your spiritual needs. In Maslow's hierarchy of needs, those needs for security and food can sometimes dominate us, but actually we can meet our spiritual needs, whatever's happening to us in the rest of life. And also to say that the evidence base is there that meeting your spiritual needs is likely to improve your health. So if you're really struggling at the moment, think about how you might address your spiritual needs. Make time for the activities which you find helpful and help you to find joy. And here's a free gift for you. Just in case you are waiting till you get around to it, here you are, cut it out with a screenshot and you'll be able to find time. At the end of the presentation, there are some further resources which we can look at later. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Neil.
I'm pleased I didn't have a Theresa May moment that went on forever during my coughing fit.
I wanted to offer you some water, but of course I couldn't do. But yes, it recovered. Thank you. There's so much for us to think about, Neil. It's a wonderful presentation. And for our audience joining us here today, this is your opportunity to ask Neil a question, make a comment, or make a reflection. You can do this using the chat function, and I'll read your question out or your comment out. Or if you want, you can raise a hand using the hand function. So this is on the bar that's in the middle of your screen if you're not familiar to it. The chat is the little chat box and the hand is the little hand. And if you raise your hand, I'll come to you, or if you make a comment, I'll come to you. So yes, please join in. Otherwise, I'll ask a question, I'm afraid. But we've had a comment from Gail that says thank you, Neil, just what I needed. That's lovely feedback. But have we got any comments or questions?
I'll ask a question, Richard.
Oh, thank you, Kevin.
So thank you very much, Neil. I guess I love this idea of what for me is a great life. You know, that question is going to circulate. Have you got any advice about how I might go about answering that question, things I might do?
Well, one of the questions that Stephen Covey suggests we do in his book, 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, which I've put in the resources, is to say, think about your obituary. Think about what people will say to you as you're ending your life, or say about you after your life is finished, and what sort of things can they say? And therefore, I ask myself, how do people see me? What do I offer to other people? And that allows me to reflect very deeply on my own behaviours, my own character. And it's to think, what sort of person do I want to be? And to think about those things. Actually, they're very, very simple things, but how do I change myself? How do I cut off the things in my life that I know are unhelpful to me and unhelpful to other people? That's one way of doing it. And what can I adopt that will help me change my character and my values? It's very personal, though.
Yes, it's very personal indeed. Thank you very much. It's very helpful. Thank you.
Thanks. Please remember, you can use the hand function or put a comment in chat if you've got any questions for Neil. We've got a kind of comment question from Kristin, which was, I was just thinking about whether having grown up in an organised religion, e.g. attending church, teaches you and ingrains in you the practice of reflecting on your blessings. Now, I don't know whether you want to pick that up from the question or whether you want me to ask Kristin whether she wants to say anything.
I think one of the things that religion does is help give some structure to the way we explore our spirituality. So religion gives us a rhythm to life. It gives us festivals to look forward to. It gives us a group to belong to. I know every time I've moved to a new part of the country, I've had an instant group of friends to find because I've gone to church. So that I've never felt lonely when I moved to a new area because I found a local church where I felt involved. And so there is a benefit in one sense to that. In another sense, it also gives you a sense of what you're looking for. I think one of the problems with organised religion is where we think we can only do it within that setting, and we don't do spirituality when we're not within the mosque or the temple or church, and we don't do it on our own. I think we shouldn't ghettoise it. I don't know if Kristin wants to comment on that at all. Say anything.
Kristin, would you like to comment on what you heard from Neil, or you don't have to? You don't feel any pressure at all. No. I'm guessing not, so that's okay. Yes. Okay, let's. There's been an interesting comment from Lisa, which I won't make you answer, but it's a very good comment. Any chance we could have a trust-wide Teams service? I think she's thinking about a service.
What are the, I mean, just to say, we have been talking in chaplaincy about a chance to reflect on loss and about COVID-19 as a trust-wide thing. Once we feel that we're beyond the current crisis, and we are doing services for patients actually, but we want to do something for staff at some point. So we are thinking about that, Lisa.
Okay, great. Interesting question from Paul. I like the diagram at the beginning. What can we say to patients who are missing the communal aspect of attending a congregation at this time of restricted movement?
Community patients are able to perhaps access watch things on the BBC are presenting a service every day, but we still are missing out on actually being with people. And although many churches are doing Zooms and so on, I don't think there's an easy answer actually. It is about trying to practice something of what you normally got from doing things in group activities. So encouraging people to read their scriptures or to spend time in prayer if they're not used to doing that on their own. And chaplains can provide resources for that. So you can ask us for resources. We've got little prayer booklets and that sort of thing if you want to come and ask us for that.
Thank you, Neil. It's really helpful. Okay. We've probably only got time for one or two more questions, probably one. Phil's asked, gratitude is always helpful. Can we be grateful for COVID?
I think you can find something good about everyone. There's an old story of Corrie ten Boom, who was someone in prison in a concentration camp, found gratitude for the fleas in her hut. Because it kept the Nazi guards out, and they didn't therefore find the hidden Bible that she'd got. And so even the worst situation, even there was a little poem found after the concentration camps were liberated, written by a Jewish prisoner who said, "Dear Lord, remember the good deeds that resulted from this horrendous situation." I can't remember the exact poem, but it is, don't think about all the bad things that have been done, but remember the fruits we have grown from this. And I think we have actually, as people, found a great deal of togetherness. And there has been a lot of fruit from this situation we found ourselves in. So we can be grateful, even though we'd rather not be here. That's part of finding joy in misery.
Okay, thank you very much, Neil. I think we'll bring it to a close for the questions there. So thank you very much, Neil, for an inspiring presentation. I think I feel privileged to have viewed it, and thank you for sharing your expertise. And thank you everyone for asking questions.
And I'm willing to stay on a little longer if people still want to chat.
Oh, thank you, Neil. Okay, so we'll carry on after we close at 1 if people want to stay on, and sometimes that's an opportunity to ask a question in a smaller group setting. Okay, and so thank you very much. I'm just going to put up a slide now to give you information about the live cast coming up. Okay. Oh, no, that's your one. Sorry. Let's put it up again. Okay. Here we go. Okay. So hopefully people can see that slide there. We've got live casts coming up in July. We're going to take a break next week. This is the first break we've taken, so there won't be a live cast next week. So we apologise for that. But there are so far 3 live casts arranged for July, and they're really good ones. So on the 3rd of July, we've got Dr. Stuart Mitchell, Trust Lead for Personality Disorder, presenting on mentalising during the pandemic. How can we rebalance ourselves? On the 17th of July, we've got Dr. Kalpita Kunde, who's Trust Lead for the Psychological Wellbeing Service, and she's presenting on BAME conversations. And just confirmed yesterday, so we haven't got a title yet, but on the 24th of July, Paul Nicol, the Patient and Carer Involvement Facilitator, is going to be our presenter. We're looking forward to all of those 3. We continue to look for more presenters for our live cast. So if you are interested, please do contact us, and we'll support you as much as you need with bringing your presentation to us. We're especially keen to hear different voices and perspectives. And that leaves it to me to thank you all again, and thank you for our presenter. And thanks for everyone who attended today, and we'll hopefully see you soon.
Richard?
Yes.
Can I just say before you finish that actually, seeing as we don't have a live cast next week, what we do have, however, is the Mind, Health and Wellbeing Network, which is meeting at 10 o'clock. And we will be very welcome to join us all. It'll be in the bulletin. So if you're not otherwise engaged, do come and join the Mind, Health and Wellbeing Network. And we really look forward to seeing as many people as possible.
That's great. Okay, thank you for adding that. So,
thank you, Richard.
It's a pleasure. So look forward to seeing everyone in 2 weeks' time. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.